We are from Group 8, and underlying this report is about performance management and appraisal. And this is followed by managing performance, discipline, and discharge. Accordingly, this report will make us understand these important aspects for the purpose of improving the efficiency of employees and to have strategic tools to achieve organizational goals.
Performance management and appraisal. The success of a company is majorly based on the performance of the employees. Hence, it becomes imperative to track the performance of the employees. Although performance management and performance appraisal are often used interchangeably, they are indeed different terms that play different roles in tracking and enhancing the success chart of any company or organization. What is performance management? It is a continuous process of identifying, measuring, managing, and developing the performance of the human resources in an organization. This is directed towards ensuring that organizational processes are in place to maximize the productivity of the organization, employees, and teams. Basically, we are trying to figure out how well employees perform and then to ultimately improve that performance. Therefore, it plays a significant role in accomplishing organizational strategy as it entails assessing and enhancing the value of the workforce, which also helps employees to put in their best efforts to achieve company goals. Performance management does not aim at enhancing every skill. Good performance management only intends to improve the specific skill set that align with the company's interests and goals. It evaluates the overall contribution of an employee towards the organization to enhance the productivity and effectiveness of the employee. Crucial career aspects like bonuses, promotions, and dismissals are closely related to this process. Objectives of performance management. The major objectives of performance management are defining the company's goals, setting realistic expectations for managers and employees, establishing clear communication between individuals and teams, defining a performance plan by setting performance benchmarks, shape individual training and performance plans. Benefits of performance management. There are several key benefits to implementing an agile approach to performance management, and those are improve employee engagement and motivation, better talent retention, set clear expectations and objectives, identify development and progression opportunities, highlights training gaps, identifies potential risk, better overall organizational performance. Approaches for conducting performance management. The two approaches used for conducting performance management are behavioral approach. This approach is best suited for situations where individual results are difficult to measure. The behavioral approach identifies and measures behaviors to evaluate employees. This approach is mainly used for assessing individuals working in a team, support staff, and HR professionals. Result-oriented approach. This approach is used when the outcome is more important than the execution. The employees are evaluated based on the objective criteria. A result-oriented approach is used for evaluating sales professionals, call center employees, and etc.
What is performance appraisal? A performance appraisal consists of an evaluation of an individual's performance and contribution to the organization. This systematic process assesses an individual based on a predetermined set of criteria wherein it looks at factors such as an employee's attitude, work ethic, attendance, and mastery of the role. Therefore, it is used by the company or organization for reviewing the job performance of an employee over some period of time in order to identify the best performers, review progress, and reward top performers. Performance appraisal is conducted in a systematic procedure involving the following steps. The remuneration of an employee is measured and compared with the company's targets and plans. The factors responsible for the performance of an employee are assessed and evaluated. The employees are guided by the employers to enhance their performances. Objectives of performance appraisal. The major objectives of performance appraisal are keeping records to decide stipend structure, bonuses, etc. Assigning the right tasks to the right employees after evaluating their strengths and weaknesses. identifying and evaluating the potential of an employee for further growth and development, providing feedback and positively impacting the working habits of employees. Benefits of performance appraisal. Undertaking a proper performance appraisal can help a company or organization in the following ways: deciding upon the promotion or dismissal of the employees, deciding upon the salary or stipend structure of the employees, boosting employee development, establishing clear and effective communication between the employers and employees, motivating employees. Types of performance appraisals. Usually, performance appraisals involve supervisors evaluating their staff. However, the term performance appraisal covers the following types as well. Self-assessment. An individual rates their behavior and performance. Peer assessment. An individual's co-workers rate their performance. 360-degree feedback assessment. Performance review is collected from an individual, peers, and supervisor. Negotiated appraisal. It is a relatively new approach wherein a mediator is involved. It attempts to moderate the negativity that can be a part of the performance evaluations by allowing the subject to present first. How do performance appraisals work? Designed by human resources or HR departments. Performance appraisals help employees advance their careers by providing feedback on their job performance. They ensure that the employees manage and meet the expected goals and give them proper assistance by guiding them on how to reach the target if they fall short. Given the limited funds to the award incentives, companies can easily determine how to allocate those funds by checking out the top performers through performance appraisals. They help understand which employees have been major contributors to the company's growth and are most deserving. Reminder, it is important to note that performance appraisal isn't only time when employees and managers discuss the employee's contribution. Frequent conversations help keep all team members on the same page, strengthen relationships between managers and employees, and reduce the stress of annual reviews. Performance management versus performance appraisal. Performance management and performance appraisal are distinct terms. A blend of both performance management and performance appraisal works best for a company's interests. Here are the key differences between performance management and performance appraisal. Performance management. Performance management focuses on expending time and resources on employees for the growth of the company. Performance management ensures that an employee has accomplished the set goals or not. It also guides them with blockers on the way. Performance management guides employees so that they can perform better in the future, while performance appraisal evaluates reviews performances and effectively communicates how an employee has worked in a current task. It does not provide a strategy for future growth. Performance appraisal only evaluated employees' performance objectively for the year and gave final feedback. And lastly, performance appraisal evaluates an employee's mistake and communicates how an employee could have given better effort.
Managing performance, discipline, and discharge. Managing performance. It is an organization's best interest to follow good human resources practices, such as regular performance appraisals and documented progressive performance management of all employees. Elements of managing performance. Effective managing performance typically includes the following three broad elements: goal setting, performance review, and performance improvement process. Employees may use a multiple of options in the execution of process in managing performance, but an effective system will incorporate the three basic elements in some form. Element 1. Goal setting. Goal setting is a process of establishing objectives to be achieved over a period of time. It is the performance criteria an employee will evaluate it against performance goals for individual employees should ideally align with organizational goals. Element 2. Performance review. Performance review it is the process of assessing an employee's progress towards goals, strengths, and weaknesses of all employees are recorded regularly so that the organization can make informed and accurate decisions regarding an employee's contribution, career development, training needs, promotional opportunities, pay increases, and other topics. Performance review and evaluation involve the objective and subjective consideration to how to measure and evaluate employee performance results. Element 3. Performance Improvement Plans. The use of a Performance Improvement Plan (PIP) can range from employees who may be new to a role or who are unclear on performance expectations to employees who are regularly falling short of meeting performance expectations and whose performance may necessitate the beginning of a progressive discipline process regarding the performance level. The document used to guide the process is a critical tool as it helps facilitate performance discussions, records areas of a concern, and ways to correct them, and serves as a legal decision-making documentation. Discipline. If an employee is not meeting the expectations, discipline might need to occur. Discipline is defined as a process that corrects undesirable behavior. The goal of a discipline process shouldn't necessarily be to punish, but to help the employee meet performance expectations. Many companies, especially in ionized environments, have adopted progressive disciplinary policies. These policies have two functions. First, they are used to correct unsatisfactory performance in the early stages before it becomes a serious problem. Second, if necessary, it can be used to support the design to terminate an employee for just cause. The threshold for establishing grounds for just cause is very high. Most offenses will not lead to automatic grounds for termination for just cause. In order to establish those grounds, an employer will need to show that it has taken steps to correct the behavior prior to a culminating incident. The standard progressive disciplinary policy has the following steps: verbal warning, written warning, suspension of a final written warning, termination. Progressive discipline policies also have the advantage of setting the standards by which all employees are treated, and thus ensuring a level of consistency in the disciplinary process. When there is a concern regarding conduct or performance, the action taken will depend on the nature of that concern. Actions may range from informal counsel to intimidate discharge.
Discharge. The following are some of the grounds for discharge or termination based on just cause. Number 1, incompetence. An employer will have to warn an employee of their failure to meet acceptable standards, set out the standards that are expected, and give an employee a reasonable time to improve. An employer will also have to provide the necessary support or training before terminating them for incompetence. If the failure to meet the standards is not the fault of the employee, or there are mitigating circumstances such as disability, an employer will not be able to rely on incompetence as a basis for termination. Number 2, conduct outside normal working hours. An employee's conduct outside of normal working hours will not constitute grounds to terminate the employee for just cause unless the employer can establish that the employee's conduct is wholly incompatible with the employee's discharge of his duties for the employer or causes damage to the employer's reputation. Number 3, harassment or sexual harassment. Most employers now have harassment policies which caution employees that a violation may result in the termination of their employment. As with other types of misconduct, a decision as to whether to terminate for just cause will depend on factors such as the nature of the misconduct, whether the employee shows remorse, and the length of service of the employee, and whether the employee has been disciplined for similar conduct in the past. Number 4, dishonesty. In determining whether just cause for termination on the basis of dishonesty exists, the employer must have regard to the nature of work, the level of seriousness of dishonesty, as well as its impact on the employer's work matters. 5. Disobedience or insubordination. If an employer regularly uses language which is inconsistent with the employment relationship, or refuses to respect the authority of management, the employer may have grounds to terminate for just cause. This is also a situation where progressive discipline should be used prior to termination. One act of disobedience will not normally give rise to grounds for termination for cause. However, if there is a repeated failure to follow the employer's direction, policies, or procedures, grounds for termination for just cause may exist, and employers should ensure that any directions given to the employees are clear and unequivocal. Number 6, revelation of character. If an employee has engaged in behavior which shows that he is untrustworthy character, an employer may have grounds to terminate for just cause, especially in situations where an employee is in a position of trust. Number 7, lateness and absenteeism. Employers must be able to satisfy that the employee's level of absenteeism far exceeds that of the average employee, and that there is no reasonable expectation that the level of attendance will improve in the future. Absenteeism because of a disability will not normally be grounds for termination for cause. However, even when employees are absent because of a disability, employers are entitled to a reasonable amount of information confirming that the employee is unable to attend work because of illness or accident, that they are undergoing treatment, and whether they are likely to return in the future. When calculating the level of absenteeism, it is important not to include leaves of absence permitted by statute, such as maternity leave, family medical emergencies, and jury duty. Number 8, alcohol or drug use. Alcohol or drug use during working hours is certainly grounds for discipline and may be grounds for termination for just cause, depending on the impact upon the employer's business. However, addiction to drugs or alcohol is considered a disability, and thus an employer has an obligation to accommodate these disabilities by at minimum giving employees a leave of absence to seek treatment. During working hours is certainly grounds for discipline and may be grounds for termination for just cause, depending on the impact upon the employer's business. However, addiction to drugs or alcohol is considered a disability, and thus an employer has an obligation to accommodate these disabilities by at minimum giving employees a leave of absence to seek treatment. Number 9, conflict of interest. Employees have an obligation to avoid actual or potential conflicts of interest in the course of their employment. Some conflicts are so serious as to justify immediate dismissal for cause. Number 10, disciplinary demotion. In a non-union situation, an employer has no right to discipline by demoting the employee unless it is a term of the employee's contract that he or she is subject to demotion for misconduct. Number 11, condonation. One of the biggest impediments to arguing a successful case for just cause is the doctrine of condonation. If an employer has allowed an employee to engage in misconduct repeatedly without taking any steps to address and remedy the misconduct, it can be argued that the employer has condoned the misconduct. In this event, an employer will have to re-establish the standards of behavior, clearly communicate them to the employee, and give the employee an opportunity to mend his or her ways before termination.